Hi, everybody. I'm Katrina Rasbold, and I'm here in my office at Crossroads Metaphysical Store. I apologize for the backlighting, but unfortunately, this is the direction that my working space faces, and I kind of have to squeeze these videos in between clients, and we've been exceptionally busy lately. And over the last year or so, my YouTube channel has been sorely neglected, and I really wanted to get you folks some content, but unfortunately that means sacrificing a little bit on production because the time just isn't there to make it pretty and get the lighting just right and that sort of thing. So we're going for content and information rather than the perfection of the video style. So again, I'm here in my office, one of my favorite places in the world. And I'm just going to do this real quick just because I love this place so much. So I'm going to turn the camera and show you. Now this is where I sit. And this is my client space here. These are the bears that I use for healing. And there's my bookshelf, my working area where I burn candles for clients. And that is my working altar there. So again, one of my favorite places to be, those are the drums that we use for the drum circle that we have every full moon. So yeah, I love my space, but it's not a production studio. It's an actual working witch's office. And that's what happens here 5 days a week. I do take 2 days off just to recharge and stay good within my own skin and practice radical self-care. But for now, what we're going to be talking about is one of the most frequent things that I'm asked, both for the people that I do spell work with, and also for people that are coming into the shop asking for help with their spell work, and that is, why is it not working? And a lot of times people have very unrealistic expectations regarding their magical work or even my magical work on their behalf. And when I'm working for a client and doing spell work for them, I try to keep them very keyed in on what they can and can't expect regarding spell work. Unfortunately, there are a lot of charlatans out there who really just want to take the client's money. They promise them the moon. We can absolutely get that man back. Of course, you're going to win the lottery. You are going to get the job of your dreams. You just have to believe enough. And this is really usually just a scam to get your money. Almost always when somebody is giving you absolutes and promising you exactly what's going to happen as the result of the spell work that they're doing for you, they're going to be charging you out the wazoo. And we're talking hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a single spell work. Or I've had people even quote $2,000-3,000 for an act of magic that someone was going to perform on their behalf. And then if you resist at all, that spell worker gets very belligerent and sometimes threatening with you and telling you that you're never going to be able to accomplish this with anyone else. No one else has the power that I have. And when that happens, you really need to just run and run very quickly, because here's the real truth about magic. It's got to do with a number of very specific factors, and that is individual to each case. So I can do the exact spell work for one person, have it happen in a day, and do the exact spell work for another person and have it take 2 or 3 years. So, and then another person, you might do the same thing. It does not happen at all. There are no guarantees with magic. And anyone who will tell you that there is a guarantee probably just wants to take your money. This candle, pay $70 for this candle and it's going to fix your situation. That simply is not the case. But why? Why does magic sometimes take a really long time to work? And I'm going to talk to you about that. As I mentioned, each situation is individual. Everybody who comes to me in crisis. Nobody comes to the witch when they're happy and everything's going great. So they're coming to me in crisis, which means they're basically putting me on a sinking ship, handing me a bucket and saying, I need you to bail this as soon as possible, and I need you to get this boat going straight again and not sinking. And so you're not coming at it at a time when it's easy to repair something. You're coming at it at a time when you are their last resort and everything is just blowing up all around. They come to me when they are the tower card of the tarot. And so that crisis itself means that it's a lot harder to put it all back together and get these people whole and hale and where they want to be. For instance, they don't usually come to me when their relationship is starting to crack and show signs of trouble. They come to me when their partner has already left them and is with someone else. So we get the point of the highest crisis most of the time. And even when we don't, there are still nuances that are very specific to that situation that create resistance to the magic or open the door for the magic. And that's why it's so varied. Another thing that is a real wild card with every situation is it's very rarely that someone comes to me to work magic for them that only involves them. Almost always we have this extension that happens with the energy of the magic, which is I need you to work on my partner and what they're thinking and feeling and needing and wanting. I need you to get this employer to hire me. I need you to get this coworker to be nice to me and create a more harmonious working relationship. I need you to get this house seller to sell just to me. It always reaches out and affects somebody who's not in the picture, somebody I don't know, somebody I've never met, somebody whose energy I can't gauge except from from a distance through the filter of the person standing right in front of me. Now, of course, I always advocate for my client. My job is to work for my client and from their perspective. However, I can do the best magic if I have a very clear and honest and objective overview of the situation, which is rarely going to come from the client. So that's another obstacle in and of itself there. So let's talk about why magic doesn't work right away. Now, there are some times that the second we light that candle, the magic is a big push. I can feel it go out, and I get a call within 2 or 3 days from a client saying, wow, that really worked. It's exactly what needed to happen. I will tell you in all honesty, when that occurs with that degree of success, it's usually because the situation was already poised to reconcile in the way the client wanted it to, and it just needed a push. It just needed a little bit of an energetic push over the edge. I'll give you an example of that. One of the most common things people come to me about are relationships. And so let's say that we've got a couple that's estranged, they've been apart for 4 or 5 months, and one of the people comes to me and says, I really miss my partner. We both made mistakes. We really need to give this relationship another chance. Will you do some magic to make that happen? Sure, we can do a honeypot and sweeten that relationship. We can do a come to me candle and encourage that person to come talk to you, connect with you, think of you. We can do that. And so let's say I do that, and the partner who I have not met and haven't don't know their perspective, I only know the perspective of my client, is really pining for them. What if the partner feels just as sad that that relationship is over? What if the partner is sitting there holding their cell phone saying, gosh, should I call? Should I text? I really want to reconnect. If I burn the honey pot and burn the candle, that might be enough to encourage that partner to say, yes, wow, yeah, I really feel confident I can do this. And then they get together and everything's great. That's our best case scenario. Then we've got the other end of the spectrum, which unfortunately is often where it is, which is someone who has been accountable in some way for the ending of the relationship now wants that person back, and the other person maybe has moved on with someone else. That's the most common reason they suddenly want that person back, is because they've lost that chance. They're with another person now. Maybe even has started a family with them, they've married them, but they want to pull that person back. You can see how the obstacles to the magic that I might do in that situation are stacking up due to free will. Does that person want to come back? Now, we're using that as an example, but that can extend outward into, does this person want to give you a raise? Does this person want to genuinely sell their home? And if they do they want to sell it to you? The free will of another person is one of the primary obstacles that you're going to encounter in spell work. And the amount of resistance that other person has to the work you're doing is often the determinant for how soon or even if that spell work is going to be successful, because you're trying to adjust and mitigate the feelings, the wants, the desires, the intentions of another person. And not only does that require a gigantic amount of energy, but it usually isn't sustainable. You don't change a person's heart and change a person's mind and have it stay there without reinforcement. You have to keep burning candles to keep them feeling that way unless they genuinely felt that way underneath. So it all depends on if you're creating those feelings and intentions from dirt because there's nothing there, or if they are there and they're just hidden. They're just piled over with hurt, or they're piled over with what other people think that they should do. Then we can uncover it and it's genuine and we can keep this couple together. Again, that's just an example, but it's a pretty good example and it's a pretty common example. So the free will of other people often is your greatest resistance to any spell work. And sometimes you can burn candle after candle after candle after candle and not overcome the free will of another person. Let's look at that same situation we talked about. Let's say that the person who is in front of me, who is my client, cheated on that other person multiple times, hurt them profoundly, was cruel to them, and now that there was somebody else wants them back and promises to do better. You know, that other person may already have this relationship so far in the rearview mirror. They're now with someone who treats them well. That magic is likely not going to be successful because of the amount of energy required to pull that person back in. So that is free will resistance. And anytime your magic isn't working, almost always it's resistance of some kind to that magic that's creating your obstacle. So again, free will resistance is one of those forms of resistance that can really overpower your own magic that you're putting out there. Another one is the magic and resistance of your own greatest good. We have some immutable points, and I really have come to believe that. I didn't used to, and now I do. I think there are some times that the universe, God, Goddess, Blessed Mother, whatever you consider to be divine, steps in and says, you know what, kiddo, sometimes the answer is just no. You can't have that. And you can't have that because it's not in your best interest. And if that's the case, it doesn't matter how much you plead for it, how hard you work for it, how many candles you burn, it simply is not going to happen. And there are people who believe differently. I just want to put out there that this is my perspective after 40 years of magical work. And for around 25 of those years working on behalf of other people, that sometimes some things are just not meant to be. They're going to throw you off course with what you're intended to do in this life, and you just can't have it. When my daughter was a little girl, I have 6 children, 5 sons and a daughter, and my daughter in particular would get very frustrated when I would tell her no if she did not rationalize or understand the reasons. And this was from the time she was very little. And so I would explain it, but ultimately there were times I had to say to her, you know what, sweetheart, sometimes the answer is just no. And that's the way it is with life and with magic. Sometimes the answer is no. And most of the times, if we meet that no with graciousness and say, you know what, okay, not meant to be, I'm going to let it go, often something even better will come along and take its place. And that's not just a platitude. I've seen it happen time and again and again and again. It's happened so many times in my own life. So your greatest good often is what is affected by or what causes your magic to not be effective. And I'll even go so far as to say I would not be sitting here in front of this camera in this beautiful shop talking to you if all my magic in my entire life had ever worked. I would be having a much different life. So sometimes for our own best interest, the answer is just no. And that's another form of resistance to your magic. And it's a big form of resistance. Another thing that can happen is actually magical opposition. And that's where you're working for something, but someone else is working harder or more in alignment with the universe than you are. So let's go back to that scenario that I described. Let's say that my client has decided they want their ex back, even though that ex is happy with somebody else, they want them back. Well, what if that somebody else is a magical person? And what if they have put protection around this person so that no energy can come toward them? What if they have lured this person in or fortified their relationship with love magic? You're going to hit that resistance to your own magic. And that, again, creates resistance. So, magical opposition or someone working magic that's the opposite of the goal of what you're doing can also create that resistance that can stop your magic from working. The last thing I want to talk about is the most common reason why magic doesn't work. And that is that you stopped before you hit the energy load that was required to make that goal happen. Now, every single magical act to be successful has to hit a specific energy load or cumulative amount of energy invested toward that outcome. So, we mentioned that every magical situation is individual, and that means that every magical situation has its own individual magical energy load. So, everything is going to affect what this energy load looks like, and that energy load is going to shift all the time. So let's say that you have a lot of resistance to your goal. That's going to increase the energy load that's required. Let's say that you really are kind of indifferent to whether it happens or not. That's going to increase the energy load needed because we don't have the power of your desires in there. What if, you know, all of the things we talked about in that scenario is what's going through my head right now. What if the other person doesn't want what you want? What if the other person is, in fact, resistant to what you want? What if 10 years has passed instead of a year? All of these factors create the ongoing energy load that goes up and down and up and down. And you have to hit that minimum energy load to be able to make what you want to have happen. So let's say that it's going to take at this time 10 candles, a honey pot, and a mojo bag to be able to hit the energy load needed to make this happen. You might get to 8 candles and say, screw this stuff doesn't work. So you have to invest to the point of the energy load that's going to make that happen. Think of it in terms of electricity. So we need a certain amount of energy to light a light bulb. We need a certain amount of energy to run a refrigerator. We need a certain amount of energy to light up a city. Your specific magical work has an assignment of energy level to it. And you've got to hit that energy level. Now, if I try to run a refrigerator on a 9-volt battery, that is not going to work. I got to warn you guys, there's a cat coming around the corner that has decided to be a part of what we're doing here. She is resistance to the magic of this video. Dory, down goes. So, again, you got to hit the right energy load. And what I tell my clients is this: only you know when you're done. Because they'll keep saying, well, how much longer, how many more candles do I have to burn on their second or third candle? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't have that information. When I'm working with the energies that I'm working with, it doesn't come back and say, you're going to need this many candles. It just says, push the energy, push the energy. And I tell them, you will know when you're done. You will know when you've either invested enough that you're saying it's not worth it, I'm going to go do something else, or when you're saying, I'm not done yet, I need to keep going. I need to give more and more and more. It's always up to the client or me if I'm saying I can't, in all good integrity, take more of your money because I really don't think this is going to happen. I think we have too much resistance, and I can't, in good conscience, continue to work on this with you. Think about this too. Magic and energy, magical energy, personal energy, bio-universal energy, whatever energy you're pulling down and working with when you're doing your magic, it has the same properties and applies the same laws that any type of energy applies. So if you can remember back to physics and high school general science, there are certain laws that apply to energy conservation. And one of them is that, force is absolutely reactive to resistance. So think about your spell work as you're in a big warehouse and you're pushing a gigantic box across a floor. And the box might have varying weights in it. It could have a car in it. It could have a toaster in it. But we got to push this giant box all the way to the other end of the warehouse. Think about the resistances that would affect that. The floor. Is it smooth or is it jagged or is it tilted so that you're pushing uphill? That's going to create more resistance. Do you have somebody on your side pushing along with you, helping you in that same direction? Or do you have somebody on the other side pushing back against you? How are you going to get it across that floor? Is it going to be a big burst, a huge ritual, in our case, that we would use for an example, where you just shove it across with superpowers and hope that it hits the other wall? Or is it going to be a series of candles with a steady push, 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 push to get it there? All that matters is that you get it to the other side of the wall. How you get it there is up to you. You have to decide if it's going to be, we're going to pull out all the guns and we're going to do all these different candles and we're going to do the honey pot and we're going to do the poppets and we're going to do the mirror box and we're going to do the like the different oils and the different stones. And we're going to bring all of our ammo to this one thing and just push it hard? Or are we going to go slow and steady and just shove it a little bit at a time? So that's what we're looking at, is the amount of resistance versus the amount of push we have and being able to reach our goals. Another thing to think about is energy saturation. Now, I talked about all these things you can use, and yes, everything you use can definitely accentuate your magical work. Every little component puts another layer on there that builds basically your magical case, excuse me, and advocates for what you're doing. So if we have a stone that we know draws in money, then that becomes money energy. If we have a candle, a showers of gold candle, that becomes money energy. If we put a little bit of change and dollar bills on our prosperity altar, that becomes money energy. If we use prosperity rice all around it, that becomes money energy. If we give an offering, then that becomes money energy. So as you can see, those are components that we're adding onto a prosperity altar, and each component provides more prosperity energy toward our goal, basically making our light bulb brighter and brighter and brighter. However, there is something called energy saturation, and that's where you reach a topping out point where additional work isn't really adding that much. It's like you topped out the energy you can use for today, and we come back and work it a little bit more tomorrow. And we don't really know where that level is. You can just kind of feel the density of the energy and feel like this isn't really getting more intense as I'm adding more stuff. I think it's done. We don't overpaint the Mona Lisa. And when you're doing that, the real message is, hey, 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 let's let the world spend a day or two and come back and add to it later. Sometimes things need a moment to reconcile and work in that new energy that you're sending to it so that things can start to work out in your favor. So don't feel like you've got to push it all the time. Sometimes you do need to let the situation rest a little bit. That being said, don't forget that as soon as the magic or the candle goes out, your magic starts to drop. So you burn the candle and you're building and building and building energy. The candle goes out, it stabilizes a little bit, and then it starts to drop. And so you don't want to let too much time go without continuing your work if you're not seeing results. But every now and then you can kind of feel that spell work needs to breathe. So give it that moment. That's really what I've got for you on this today. I didn't intend for it to be a half-hour video, but that's kind of how it worked out. It's just a big conversation because people, of course, are very invested in magic and why is it not working? And especially if they're paying for magic to be done, they want to know why it's not working. And there's just no guarantees. There is, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to try this from a few different angles. We're going to see how the energy responds to the different things we do. We're going to throw things at the wall and see what sticks and what's really working for your situation, because each one is so unique that we've got to find the perfect cocktail of magical work to get it to be responsive. For instance, sometimes with the love candles and things like that, people will respond very well to a come to me candle, but bring back my lover gets all kinds of black soot and just isn't comfortable for them. So we've got to find the right fit, and then we got to continue the push and compare that to what we're seeing in outside results, and just keep going until we find what works. So sometimes it's also trial and error and seeing what's going to work for this situation and what's not, and not pushing the parts that are not working. So if you have any questions, you can contact me at crossroadsoccult.com, and I'll put that link down below in the comments. And what I do here at Crossroads is I am a professional witch. I do client work, spell works, and spiritual cleansings and things like that for other people. And I also teach classes here at Crossroads, and I've written several books on magical modalities and different types of energetic work. You can find me if you go to Amazon and just look up Katrina Rasbold. There are no more humans with the name Rasbold in Amazon, I don't think. I think it's just me. So thanks so much for being here and tuning into this video, and I hope you got something out of it. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.